These are tough times for marketers. You want to make sure that every penny you spend works as hard as possible. Now, obviously, at a time when costs are rising and margins are under pressure, we're all being asked to do more with less, which is an impossible brief for most people, but there are things you can do. The first thing is good old-fashioned media planning, learning to optimize the effectiveness and efficiency of the budget by distributing the money across the right channels and putting it against the right products in the right markets. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, which media are most effective and efficient today? And here we're very fortunate to have a new piece of research from Meta, which looks at the effectiveness of different channels for 3,500 different advertising campaigns in different markets and different categories around the world. This research was published at the back end of last year, and it measures not just the short-term but the long-term effects of advertising on sales and revenue and profit. Now, if you just look at those short-term effects, we see that the most effective media today for short-term performance marketing tend to be digital media, in particular online video and paid search. Those are the blue bars we see here. The biggest short-term spikes come from these digital channels. But what Meta's research shows is that only about 40% of the payback from advertising comes back in the short term from those short-term direct effects. As Peter Field and I have argued for years, the big payback from marketing comes from the longer-term effect of brand advertising, the longer-term effect on sales and profit over months and years. Meta's research shows that 60% of the payback comes from these long-term effects. And when you add the long-term effects in, you see that the most effective medium in the world today is still TV, closely followed by online video. So the main message here is that video in all its forms tends to be highly effective, particularly if you want to do brand building. And as I said earlier, particularly if you want to maintain price sensitivity and increase margins. Social media comes up close behind, and within that, video formats tend to be particularly effective as well. So for a modern marketer in today's environment, the smart thing to do is to combine traditional and digital media, to combine TV with online video and social media, to use traditional TV channels together with YouTube and Facebook. It all works, and it all works together. This is what we do at my agency when we're working on big national brands that have cross-generational appeal. We use TV to talk to those affluent empty nesters, the people who've got most money in the current recessionary environment. And we use digital media to reach those light TV viewers, the younger audiences, so that we can reach everybody and we can reach them wherever they are. Now, if you get that right, and if you distribute your budget cleverly by geography and so forth, you can increase the effectiveness and efficiency of your budget substantially. A piece of research by the econometrics consultancy D2D showed that if you optimize your budget by geography, by product within your portfolio, by variant within your product range, and by medium, you can make your budget go about 12 times further. You can increase the profit and the payback and the ROI from your advertising by a factor of 12. That's not a small increase. However, there is one more thing that can give you almost as big a multiplier, and that is getting the creative right. Getting the right creative, getting the most powerful creative, can also get your budget can increase the payback from your budget by a factor of 11 or 12. D2D estimate that breakthrough creative can increase ROI and profit by a factor of just under 12. Peter Field and I showed that award-winning creative can increase budget efficiency by a factor of about 11. We're pretty much getting the same numbers here. And at a time when costs are rising, when margins are under pressure and everyone's finding it so tough, I don't think there's ever been a more important time for harnessing the power of creativity. And the core of the power of creativity is emotion. We find that breakthrough creative, award-winning creative, is much more likely to produce an emotional response, which gets more attention, more eyeballs, stronger memories, and creates that emotional bonding with a brand, which makes the people more willing to pay a higher price. And creativity is more likely to achieve fame, to get people talking about the brand and talking about your advertising and talking about your marketing. Breakthrough creativity, award-winning creativity, doubles the chance that you will get that fame effect, which we know can quadruple the efficiency of your budget. So I would urge you, yes, do the abacus economics of allocating your budget carefully using econometric modelling, but also harness the power of creativity, harness the power of emotion, harness the power of fame. Get a great agency on your side and use that magic to balance the logic of econometrics, because magic plus logic means big profits. In this series of short videos, I've looked at the 5 keys to optimal investment. The number one factor is to think about your growth prospects, to think about what will happen to your revenues and to tailor your strategy accordingly. And the good news is that we can expect revenues to grow this year for most brands, especially FMCG brands and brands in less discretionary categories. The second factor is to think about your profit margins. You need to protect your profit margins when costs are rising. That means, I think, shifting budget where you can from discounting and price promotions into brand advertising that will reduce price sensitivity and support firmer pricing. The third factor is advertising costs. And the good news is that this year, for those brands that can afford it, this may be a time to exploit cheap media. Yes, nominal headline advertising rates may rise, but in real terms, advertising for fixed inventory media will probably be at an all-time low. That makes it a cheap time to buy share of voice and market share. The fourth factor is risk. You can't do anything about interest rates, but you can reduce the risk premium that you pay. And you can do that directly through brand advertising. Investors and money people they're people too. They see advertising. Strong brands that keep advertising find it easier to borrow money and don't have to pay so much to borrow money. And that makes investment an easier decision. You can also reduce the risk associated with advertising investment by doing good research. Not just relying on simple attribution modelling, which gives you the wrong steer, but supplementing your digital metrics with controlled experiments and econometric modelling to measure true ROI. And finally, advertising effectiveness. Optimise your effectiveness through good media planning. And I would argue that means combining both the new online channels with traditional media like TV to get the broadest possible reach and make sure you reach not just the young households who may be suffering this year, but the older households who have a bit more money to spend during these tough times. But don't just do that, if you like, mathematical research. Supplement that with the magic of creativity. Get a great agency on your side and use a medium that allows you to tell stories, create emotion, to allow creativity to have its full effect in order to drive sales and profit. And I would argue that TV is one of the media that you will want to consider in order to unlock that magic. So it's going to be a tough year for many of you, but I'm hoping that these 5 factors, these 5 thoughts, will at least help guide you through the troubled times that may lie ahead. Thank you.